just a couple bad weather fans representing New York, talking all things sports. Man, what could go wrong? We got Alex, who's a fan of the Knicks, and Mike of the Nets. The yin-yang of the tri-state, place your bets on the Yankees, Giants, Mets, or Jets. Yeah, you should listen if it's sparking your interest. If you made a vow to your team, don't break it. Bad weather fans is the relation.
That's right, this is Bad Weather Fans, episode number 236. And we've done so many of these episodes, I have to look back on the Apple app and check which episode we're on. By the way, subscribe, listen. I'm Mike Biseglia alongside Alex Benesowitz, and we are presented by DraftKings. We've got a special guest joining us here on this episode, longtime NBA player and assistant coach, Rex Walters, who was on the Nets, and he had some good battles versus the Knicks in the playoffs as a member of the New Jersey Nets and also with the Miami Heat back in '99. So we've got some great stories to get to with Rex. Alex, good evening. How are you?
I'm doing great. Another day in paradise. Nice Jets win. And, away we go.
I also, by the way, so let me pull back the curtain a little bit. The way we record these is that we'll interview our guests first.
Mm-hmm.
And then we come back and we put our intro and outro together because, now we know what we talked about with Rex. But when I asked you, how are you, it felt disingenuous because I've been with you for the last hour. And quite honestly, I wish I didn't ask.
It's just the thing you do. It's like,
I know, but
how was your weekend when you're in the office? And do you really give a shit how the guy's weekend was? I don't, whatever. It's just a nice thing to say, that's all.
Okay. So can I?
Hey, how are you? When you're seeing somebody for like 5 seconds when you're walking down the hall, hey, how's it going, buddy? Oh, good. Okay, great.
All right.
I'm not expecting you to tell me the whole story, but how are you, Mike?
Moving forward. And by the way, you never ask how I am. I'm always the one that asks that. You're never like, oh, how are you?
Well,
too?
It's a podcast. I could be like,
Just
good,
ask.
and you.
I like that. I think we should incorporate that. That'd be nice.
Well, ask me again.
How was your weekend?
It sucked. I saw some dude. I saw Mike. Actually, we saw Mike and I hung out on Sunday, so that's why I was like, yeah, I saw some dude. So anyway, I'm doing well. How about yourself, Mike?
I'm doing well. So we're gonna talk to Rex in a little bit. Also, we're gonna talk about Jalen Brunson wearing an Eagles jersey because I really enjoyed that. But before we get to that, gotta tell you about it. DraftKings, our presenting sponsor, who we love so much, and TD taking it to the house. Whatever you call a touchdown, they matter more at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports book partner of the NFL. Ready to place your first NFL bet? Try betting on something simple, like a player to score a touchdown. Or if you want to, you could bet on the Jets or the Giants. I'll give you my Jets pick here. They're favored by 6.5 at home on DraftKings betting app. 6.5 versus the Pats. And I got to be honest, I love the Jets here. I think they get the win versus the Titans last week with the late heroics. And I think off their running now at home, they blow out the Patriots. Ready to do a touchdown dance of your own? Score big with DraftKings Sportsbook, the number one place to bet touchdowns. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code BWF. That's code BWF for new customers to get $250 in bonus bets when you bet just $5 and get 1 month of NFL Plus Premium. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 88778-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-777 or visit ccpd.org. Please play responsibly on behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort, Kansas. 21 plus. Age eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/ftball. NFL Plus Premium offer available only to new and former NFL Plus subscribers. Additional NFL Premium terms at nfl.com/terms. And one of those NFL teams is the Eagles. They had a rough loss versus the Vikings on Monday night. And who was at the game? New York Knicks star point guard Jalen Brunson rocking an Eagles jersey. I didn't see what player it was, to be honest.
Jalen Hurts, I think it was.
Jalen Hurts. But boy, I thoroughly I thoroughly got a good laugh at that because people adding me on Twitter, Aces was one of them. Like, this, how could he be the king of New York? And I had a good laugh because he likes the Eagles. Who gives a shit? I mean, honestly, like I'm sorry. As much as I want to, dislike the Knicks and everything they do, he's allowed to root for the Eagles. Now, if he was out, I mean, I just there's no way around. Like, he's gonna give everything he has for the Knicks. He was wearing an Eagles jersey. I think it's okay. I'm sorry, everybody, but I don't think we should have a problem with which NFL team he grew up loving and still roots for. Doesn't mean he's going to tank versus the Sixers. I think it's
well, he already proved that. Yeah. It would have been time to do it in the playoffs, and honestly, I don't care either. We already knew he was an Eagles fan for forever. And did Nets fans care that Kevin Durant was a Commanders fan? Like, I don't think anybody cared about that.
I will say this. I'll play a little bit of a hypocrite to myself. I'm kind of pissed that Mikal Bridges was a Phillies fan. Now that kind of got on my nerves.
Yeah, I understand that, but it's weird, it's awkward, but at the same time, I respect Jalen Brunson more for sticking with his childhood team than if he just showed up wearing a Giants or Jets hat like LeBron did when he grew up a Yankees and a Cowboys fan, but then he's playing for the Cavs and being Mr. Cleveland and he's rooting for the the Indians, Guardians, whatever they were at the time, and it's just weird. It's just pick a side. Don't be a politician. Be real with your team. That's all.
By the way, Brunson loves it because he knows how annoyed some New Yorkers, not all, but there will be some Knicks fans that did get annoyed.
He probably annoys the Philly people more. You know what I mean? Because
Maybe.
It's like, you just beat us and now you're Mr. Eagle over here. Get the hell off our field. You know what I mean? Kind of a thing. So I think it's great.
Possibly. Oh, by the way, the Mets win tonight 10-1 and the Braves lose.
Acuna, right?
I also hit a homer. I didn't see much of the game, I'm going to be honest, but I did see that the Braves lost to the Reds. So that means the Mets 2 up in the NL wild card.
All right.
Alex doesn't care about the Mets.
I care.
And they have no chance.
I care. I don't think they're a real contender, but I care.
16 games over 500.
Okay.
Okay.
Prove it.
All right. But they are. They keep winning. Okay. We'll have our picks on the backside of our interview with Rex, but here it is. Great conversation. I think Knicks and Net fans are really going to enjoy some of these old school stories and modern day talk. Rex gives some incredible insight. Rex Walters. All right, it's Bad Weather fans, and as promised, Rex Walters joins us, NBA pro, so many years in the league with the Nets, with the Miami Heat, of course, an assistant coach in the NBA, college coach as well. And right before I hit record, we're joking back and forth about the Nets and the Knicks. And I promise. Well, Rex, I'll say this: like I grew up in Jersey. You were, with the Nets as a rookie in *94. You know what it's like for the backdrop for me for the Knicks. It's just years of jealousy and frustration. So unfortunately, you can understand where I'm coming from, seeing your rookie year with the Nets, and I think that year the Knicks in '94 did something okay. So you might understand where I'm coming from a little bit.
100% understand. Even playing in Miami, like it's interesting. You play a home game, and you've got all these freaking orange and blue jerseys out there. In the stands, it drives you crazy. It's a road game a lot of the time, especially even in Miami. Like there's so many transplants, people that wisened up and moved down south where the weather's a little bit better during the winter. And then in Jersey as well. And I don't know if it's as bad in Brooklyn. Obviously, it's been a long time, but there's no question that the Knicks are truly they have more tradition. They have a championship. They've had some great players, and as a net guy, I can totally understand where you're coming from, Mike.
Yeah, and in your rookie year '94, which is crazy too, because you're going there from Kansas, and just talk about that experience a little bit. I'm curious to get the behind the scenes of it because the unfortunate passing of Drazen Petrovic. You've got loaded talent with Kenny Anderson, Derek Coleman, Hall of Fame coach, and Chuck Daly. That experience for you being thrown into a team on the rise with expectations, but tragedy happening before just your rookie season in New Jersey, which I imagine had to have been unique.
It was unique, going from, Lawrence, Kansas to, East Rutherford. And I moved into a place in Hackensack, New Jersey, and going to the arena, Continental Airlines. And at that time, it was Brendan Byrne Arena. You worked out and had practice at a trucking facility, which is a little different. At Kansas, we practiced in Lawrence Fieldhouse. In Jersey, you would be taking showers with truckers, like it was, that's not even to mention the fact that that roster, and they're all great guys, but I'll be there, and I'm a little crazy too, but nowhere near some of the stuff that I got to see, playing with Derek, who's a great guy, lives in Detroit, Kenny Anderson, Dwayne Shinshis, God rest his soul, Rick Mahorn. Think about that one. Chris Morris, my man Jason Williams. Like it was interesting. I just like training camp. I just remember we're driving down. We practiced in Princeton. We went to Princeton for training camp, and I'm driving down the road to get to the hotel after practice, and all of a sudden an orange hits my car. And I'm like, what? And I look over, it's Rick Mahorn. And then Jason Williams drives by him, and he's throwing his drink out the window to try to hit Rick Mahorn's car. Next thing I know, like it's a free for all. There's like all these Mercedes Benz and great cars. I was driving a Taurus. I rented a Taurus, right? So I was like the low man of the totem pole for sure. But I'm like, oh, this is an NBA training camp right here. We're having car wars, driving. Some guys were driving a little bit faster than the speed limit too. So that experience was eye-opening for me. Saying that, Chuck was a master coach in handling egos, handling great talent. I do think with the passing of Drazen that it was a hurdle that no one was going to get over in terms of that team being on the rise, where I think they had a great series against Cleveland the year before. And then all of a sudden, Drazen passes away. You lose a guy that's a potential all-star if he wasn't already, a guy that was beloved. He was by far, from what I heard, the most popular net on that team. And you're talking about Derek Coleman and Kenny Anderson, two guys that ended up being all-stars as well. And Drazen, like the whole state of New Jersey loved Drazen's, yes, of course, his game, but his passion. He had a chip on his shoulder coming from Portland. He wanted to prove himself, and he was doing that. And it was a great compliment to Kenny and Derek Coleman. And it was just a loss that you weren't going to make up. It got me drafted. I'll be honest with you, I was hoping to get drafted by the Houston Rockets, and it was later. So I made more money, being drafted by the Nets, but a chance to play with Hakeem as a point guard, shooting guard. That was kind of my hope, even though we would have lost money. I might have got a couple rings with Jordan retiring. But no, it was eye-opening for me. And Chuck, like I said, was a master. I thought Butch Beard did a really good job. But again, that team was now going to be on the decline. You're not going to be able to replace a guy like that unless you get really, really lucky. And unfortunately, they weren't lucky enough with the 16th pick drafting Rex Walters. That wasn't going to match what Drazen brought to the table.
Yeah, and that's a wild story, and to be thrown into the fire like that is crazy. And so you were drafted in 93, so the 93-94 year, the Nets played the Knicks in the playoffs in the first round, and the Knicks beat them. And then you were also on the Heat in 99 when the Knicks beat the Heat in the Houston shot in Game 5. So I'm curious.
Podcast, how am I even talking to you, Alex? Like you're bringing up some bad stuff. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, I have a proposition for you. Can you get a job with the Celtics so the Knicks can get to the finals again this year? Beat the Celtics.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
No, well, yeah. But go ahead. I mean, I was just curious. But seriously, though, what do you think about the 90s Knicks and the difference between the 94 team and the 99 team? I know they were completely different rosters, same core, but, what do you think about those two teams?
Well, I'll say this. So in 94, we did play, a very good team. They still had Starks. They had Patrick Ewing. They had them in when we played them against the Heat. Mm-hmm. They had that bruising type of basketball when you're talking about Mason and Oakley and those guys. And we weren't quite up to the task, to be quite honest. And I won't tell you which player, but I just remember going into Game 3, one of our guys was fully inebriated from the night before. Okay. his eyes were bloodshot, and we started doing three-man weave, and he was wearing sunglasses so Chuck couldn't see his eyes with tape wrapped around his head.
Oh
Okay.
my
I was
God.
like, we're in trouble. We're in trouble for game three. There's no way in the world. I won't mention the player because I love all those guys. I don't want to put anyone on blast. It wasn't me. At that point, I didn't start drinking until my second year in the league with the New Jersey Nets. And
After
then
you lost to the Knicks, right? Of course. That's when you had to start
That's
drinking.
right. That's what did it. That put me with it. And then with that Miami Heat team, we thought we were a team on the verge. We really did. We had a great team. You talk about Tim Hardaway, you talk about Alonzo Mourning, PJ Brown, Jamal Mashburn, Bashan Leonard, Dan Marley. We thought we were on the verge. And Riley, as you know, being a former Knicks coach, unbelievable motivator. Had a system in place. It's funny. It's a lot of ways to skin a cat. Like Chuck Daly wasn't as much. He knew what he wanted to do, but there wasn't the same physical demands, I would say. Like be professional. Chuck would always say, be professional, get your conditioning in on your own. That was his approach. Whereas Pat, like, no, 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 we're going to start with conditioning the first day of training camp. We're going to outwork people. We're going to be tougher, smarter, more together, more professional, meaner, nastier, the whole Heat culture. He was really cultivating that at the time. And so we thought we were on the verge, and that was also a great Knick team. You had Patrick Ewing. We had the melee when Jeff Van Gundy is tugging on Alonzo's thing. We were saying before the game, Alonzo wasn't playing great, and he was wearing that mask. Remember, he broke his nose. And so what got the whole thing started was he was not going to wear the mask. And Pat Riley gave an unbelievable speech before the game. Like, we were fired up. He was just talking about, when I was in LA, I had Kareem. Now I got you, Alonzo. And then he goes, and then I had Magic. And he looks over at Timmy. He's like, Timmy, you're my guy now. Like, he was just going down the line. We're like ready to run through Madison. Forget the doors, run through the walls to get on the court. We're fired up and ready. It was going to be one of those type of intense games. And then Alonzo kept saying, I'm not wearing the mask. I'm going all out. And we're like, that's not a good idea. Not with the Knicks, not with the bodies that they had. And so sure enough, I think might have been game 4. I think it was a 5-game series. I could be wrong, but of course,
It was, yeah.
yeah, he gets brushed in the nose by, I think it was LJ. They had some history from Charlotte, and then, that thing ensued. And I just remember them walking off the court. Pat, Coach Riley was out there, and he just kind of looks at Zoe like, do you have any idea what you just did? You know what I mean? And
Right.
so Alonzo is the ultimate warrior, and I felt awful for him. And I don't even know if that was the year that Houston makes the tip bucket.
Yeah.
But all those games in the regular season, it was just a different atmosphere, a different environment. Obviously, there was history with Coach Riley leaving New York and at midnight or whatever, sending the fax and saying, hey, I'm leaving. He had all the power in Miami to build an organization, which he's done really well. If you look at the history of the Miami Heat compared to the New York Knicks.
Yeah.
Fortunately, we have a few more rings in Miami than they do in New York.
Knicks were winning it early on, but then the Heat ran away with it.
That's right. So, no, but those were phenomenal times and a great. I just remember it was like my first week there when I got picked up by the Heat. I didn't play, but it was like and I had that one series with the Knicks in the playoffs. In Philly, we didn't even come close to the playoffs. And I was like, this is a regular season game. This is the most intense. And this was a regular season game in December, January. And it was like, wow, this is Heat. I can't believe there hasn't been a 30 for 30 on those wars. That it was like a 3-year period, right? Where there was just like every year the Heat and Knicks were going to match up. And something crazy was going to happen.
Fights and everything.
Yes,
yeah.
Everything. Charlie Ward being flipped over by PJ Brown, like the whole 9 yards. So that was really neat for me to at least experience that. I didn't play in too many of those playoff games, if any, but every time we played against New York, it was an unbelievable environment.
Is there anything being a coach in the league so long now in the NBA? Is there anything that I wouldn't say is the same, but any rivalry or anything you've seen that even comes remotely close to that vibe and feel of games? Or is today's game and player vibes just so different that there's nothing even like those Knicks Heat series.
So think about this. And New York had already gone through Coach Riley's culture building, right? So like when you're in Miami before the game, you don't talk to your team, you don't talk to your buddies on the other team. Alonzo and Pat are tight. They don't talk before the game. You don't even look down there. You show respect by showing no respect. That was a big Coach Riley saying, right? And New York knew this. New York lived by that. Coach Van Gundy, in his own way, had some of those same philosophies. When you knock a guy down, you look at him and you walk away. You don't pick them up. You don't help them up, right? The game honors toughness when you talk about the Heat and the Knicks. That was a big thing with both teams. So with that, especially in today's game, where just look, did you ever see Pat and Alonzo after a game hugging and exchanging jerseys and taking pictures together? It never happened, right? It never happened. Before the game, there wasn't conversation. After the game, there wasn't conversation. It was totally unique in terms of, especially that time when you're talking about the 90s, the early 2000s. It was a different time. You're talking about a master motivator in Pat Riley, a guy that is all about toughness. And then Jeff Van Gundy, the same way, smart, right? Maybe not the same size, maybe not the same stature, but an unbelievable coach in his own right, a championship level coach in his own right, that had already experienced that culture that Pat Riley had formed. So it was you want to say brothers, but there was a healthy dislike for each other. So I don't know if you can say there was brothers, what they were just going to fight. Because afterwards, when you're brothers, you come in the house, you eat a meal together. We weren't eating a meal together. So no, I've not experienced it. When we played the Pacers, it was intense as well, but nothing like a Knicks Heat, and I should say it this way, Heat Knicks matchup when it came to the NBA at that time period.
Yeah, I mean, so some of the most classic fights in those series, and that you brought up the morning LJ fight, and the funniest part about that fight is they're throwing haymakers and nobody connected. They're not one punch connected. That was the funniest part about all of that, looking back. And the PJ Brown thing, PJ Brown got booed, played for 10 other teams, and he got booed when he got to the Garden every single time. It's wild how the NBA has changed, and it's cool to hear those stories from you. Is there any other kinds of stories, being a net, that it was playing the Knicks at the Garden, where it was a jealousy thing, like Mike was saying, or is there any other kind of story you can think of where you felt what are we doing here, kind of a thing?
Well, I'll be honest with you. So I get thrown into this All-Star game. It's not even All-Star. It's like a summer game where a lot of NBA players play. I'm a rookie. New York Knicks fans should not know who Rex was. I played in Kansas, right? Yeah. I think another net that played. We both get a healthy boo, in a charity All-Star game at the Garden, celebrating Bernard King. We get booed. I'm like, well, why? I didn't even get it at the time. I'm nobody to you guys, but they knew. You know what I mean? And so that's just was kind of the thing. New York did not respect the Nets. They did not think about us, but they would be willing to boo you in a heartbeat. And those were also good times. And it would have really excelled if Drazen would have stayed, healthy and alive. And then if Chuck would, because Chuck and Pat, there's a lot of history there with those two. You got your Armani suits, and then you probably got, I would say Chuck was probably wearing Hugo Boss. You know what I mean? So they both really like to do their hairs. They both had different styles. They both were about toughness. But no, being a net, yeah, you definitely feel unfortunately, I think it's probably gotten a little better with Brooklyn, especially when they had KD and Kyrie, and it didn't work out, but there was a buzz there for a while. But every year that city gets behind the New York Knicks. The one guy that I thought got some love from New York was Kenny Anderson, right? He's a city legend, New York City legend. So they weren't as hard on Kenny, but the rest of us, they could give a crap about.
Yeah, and I love that mentality of it, though. And I think some of those later Nets teams that went in and went to the finals with Jay Kidd and, embrace some of that too, which I think helped to go in and win at the Garden. And you referenced earlier, Rex, about, the difference with the love with the players now and how different it is across the league. Because I think about a former Net in Mikal Bridges, who was best friends with essentially everybody on the Knicks. And there would be, after a Nets loss, I got Mikal high-fiving his best friends with every different handshake, and it did annoy me more than I think it should have. Mikal made some comments about the net fans on a Knicks podcast. So I it was hard for me, and I was like, to see him trade, I feel like I'm venting here in therapy about what happened. But seeing him with the love there, and to your point, I'm like, I could never imagine that with former teams and players, and it just came across to me. I'm like, this is bizarre. I know they're your best friends, but how is this happening?
Yeah, no, it's a different time, and players are much closer. The good thing for the Nets is they've got like first round picks from now until who knows,
Yeah.
like 2090. Like they've got so many first round picks, so their future is going to look bright. I'm not a big draft pick guy nowadays. Like if you look at some of the great, even like the Pat Riley teams in Miami, they built through free agency. They cultivated guys. They would, even now today, they get second round picks, undrafted guys, and they coach them, right? And they build them up, and they really buy into the culture. I think New York's in a more of a win now mentality when you talk about their roster and who they have, and then bringing in Bridges, you mortgage the future, right? But they definitely have a chance. But yeah, it's different. It's different. Like I said, I really enjoyed Chuck Daly. I enjoyed all the coaches I played for. I really enjoyed Pat Riley. And when the game was over, you might look over there and wave after the game was over. You might. You might not. Okay. I remember one time John Calipari, who was the coach of the Nets, came into Coach Riley's office before a game. And that's where I got the whole you show respect by showing no, don't come into my office. Don't act like my friend. We're here to kick each other's ass. That's what we're here to do. Right. So there was no fraternizing. And that's how I was raised and to be going through Miami. That's what I believed in as well. You show respect by showing no respect. And the game is different now. And I love the guys that I've coached. They're all great guys. You'd like to see a little bit more nasty at times, but that's today's culture.
Yeah, and other things that have changed are the position wise in the NBA. There's like positionless basketball now, and Coach Thibs came out today. I forgot where he was when he said it, that he's going to try to play Randle at the 5 this year because the Knicks don't really have a backup center because they lost Hartenstein. What do you think about that? Randle playing the 5, maybe 10, 15 minutes a game, as Thibs said. Do you think that can work? Do you think that's just him throwing something out there in the offseason or anything in that nature?
Well, I think a couple things, like you want to get your skill on the floor, right? And so based on matchups, there's no question. Traditional 5s, like if they're playing the Nets, right? Okay, so Simmons is now going to have to play the 5, or Cam Johnson is going to have to play the 5 and they'll have a tough time guarding Randle, to be quite honest. And none of the 5s, like Claxton he'll have his hands full, right? Sharp will have his hands, Clowney will have his hands full with the ability to pick and pop, right? And the ability to still pick and roll. And he's not a lob threat. Randle's probably not a lob threat, but he can play out of the short roll and make plays out of that. So that presents a lot of problems. And as you look down at other teams, like, okay, they play Miami. Randle can guard Bam Adebayo, right? He can at the 5. So I can see that happening a lot in the regular season with him playing 10 to 15 minutes, playing the small ball, because at the end, you want to put your best players on the floor. And you look at their roster, Brunson's pretty darn good. Bridges, pretty darn good. DiVincenzo, pretty darn good. Anunoby, pretty darn good. So let's get our best players on the floor. And they're going to miss Hartenstein because Hartenstein brought skill to the floor. He could shoot a 3. He could space the floor. He was a great roller as well. And he got you extra shots. And that's what I think they'll miss with that tandem of both Mitchell Robinson and Hartenstein, right? With that size, but also now, with Robinson, there's no offense. He's not going to ever pop. And if he does, everyone on defense will be like, yes, make it, shoot it again, and then shoot it after that. Whereas with Randle, you can't do that, right? And there's not a lot of 4s that can guard Randle when he's right. There's definitely a lot of 5s that have no chance, either on a pop, in a closeout, or in isolation. He's going to be able to make a play. The biggest thing for Randle is he's going to be able to make quicker decisions and not just bounce the ball and get into his package and the ball stops. Because I just don't think that's not going to translate as well, especially in the regular season, maybe more so in the playoffs because offense gets so hard as you get into the deep runs of the playoffs.
From a coach's perspective, like we'll look at Jalen Brunson, who's really good player in Dallas, comes to New York and becomes all NBA. Has there ever been, from your vantage point as a coach, where there's a player on your team thought was good, years later he's somewhere else, and you're just like, wow, like how did that ascension happen? Like I can't believe the player that was on our roster 2-3 years down the line, wow, the growth in this guy. Has there ever been a guy similar to Brunson from your perspective?
You're going to think this is crazy, but I mean, James Harden was a sixth man for OKC. And a year later, he's like an MVP candidate and an MVP. You knew Brunson was really good. Like he was, even though he came off the bench a little bit for Dallas, and as you got to the playoffs, he was out there all the time, and he was really a second banana to Luka, right? And if they hadn't have traded him, they could have still went to the finals, right? This past year. But no, like when you think of Harden, okay, he's 6'6", all right. He was an All-American. He was a great scorer. You could see that with Brunson, although they won championships and all that. He's undersized a little bit. He's not super explosive. He's not someone that's going to drive it to the basket and dunk on you. He beats you with skill and intelligence, right? Great pivot game. He's got all the shots in the paint. He can shoot the three. He's great in pick and roll. He makes you guard everything. He's so smart and such a competitor, and he just grew up in the game. But no, I don't think anyone saw to this level where, I mean, he was in the playoffs like dominant, for that team and that organization and really the city. I mean, he became the king of New York, right, during that first two rounds in the playoffs.
Yeah, and so the Nets, they made the big trade for Bridges, and they're basically tanking the season, and they have a bunch of young players.
Those are shots at Mark. You're just taking shots.
It's okay.
Indirect.
It's
But,
better for the long term. Better for the long. I've waited a long time. So what's another 5 years?
Right. I mean, they're the prize, especially they're tanking in the right year. Cooper Flag is the prize, right? And Mike thinks they're going to be terrible. I think they're going to be pretty bad, but I think they're going to be a little better than people think because of Cam Thomas, who's going to get the rock and not going to get benched after dropping 40 like he was last year. What are your thoughts on Cam Thomas, and can he take the next step this year as being the man on the Nets?
Well, he's an elite scorer. He's one of those guys, again, that he's going to get his points, and he's going to make tough shots look easy. He's going to score it in a lot of ways. He has unbelievable confidence in his offensive game. He's a guy that at times you're going to have to even double team and get the ball out of his hands. The biggest question is, can he do it and make impactful points for winning, right? As opposed to just scoring. I think, Ben Simmons is a big question mark. And if he can give you something anywhere close to what he was before, that changes things now. And now you've got him playing as a point power forward. He's an elite defender. And that takes pressure off him, quite honestly. When you talk about having a guy like Cam Thomas, Bogdanovic, you've got some skill out there, Cam Johnson as well. You've got some guys that can score it around him where they can be credible. It's just, is he going to play? That's the whole thing is he going to play? Does he want to play? Yeah. You know what I mean? So that's the big question. But, they've got some, when you talk about Schroeder, who was dominant in international basketball again, it's a tough draw. You got a rookie coach. Jordi Fernandez has done great things, and I believe Sacramento. Can you get these guys all on the same page, right? And that's what gives you a chance to defend. I mean, last year they were 23rd in offensive rating. They were 20th in defensive rating. That's not going to work. You just look right across the river, 7th and 10th offense and defensive rating. When you got both in the top 10, you're gonna be pretty good, and so getting guys to commit to that, and quite honestly, Cam Thomas is one of those guys. Is he going to commit to really trying to guard? That's the big question, and sometimes it's not even is he gonna guard, it's like, is he gonna try, right? Like, you see some players like, hey, we're just gonna try to get them to try to defend. Right. And if they can do that, then that gives them a much better chance. Because if your best player, right, or one of your best players is not committed to that, it makes it really, really tough. That's why those Knicks teams are great. Pat Ewing is an unbelievable guy, right? Like I know they didn't win a championship, but you can go to Pat and he's going to bring it. You know what you're going to get every night. And when I was in Miami, Alonzo Mourning and Tim Hardaway, especially Alonzo, he was by far our hardest worker. And then Tim Hardaway was by far the most confident guy on the court every time he stepped on the court. So you just gravitate to that. And Timmy would try. Timmy would try to guard. He wasn't a great defender by any means, but he was going to compete every night. And so that gives you a chance to be successful and stay out of that lottery. If they want Cooper Flag, then that'll be a management decision. And all of a sudden, when you see a massive substitution, at peak times of the game, then that's there's nothing Jordy can do about that, right? That's coming from above.
Have you seen any of that stuff ever in the past where there's tanking and there's kind of a birdie in your ear like, hey, we gotta pivot in this direction? Because
okay, I won't name teams. Okay, I won't name teams, but I will say that there was late in the season a team that was playing. I won't say if I was coaching or not. You can figure that one out. Okay, literally, they make massive substitutions, like with about the 6 minute mark. Guys that played a little bit, but they were definitely, rotation guys and non-rotation guys at the end of the season. And all of a sudden, their coaching staff is looking at us like, what are you guys doing? As if like we're trying to lose. You know what I mean? And we're looking at them like, no, we're playing our guys. They're just playing bad. You know what I mean? So it definitely does happen. It sickens me to say that, but it definitely does happen. You can tell right away. And that's a management decision. And so it comes down and you got to try to figure out what's best for the franchise. I think there's some organizations that don't do that. I think Miami, they are true to the game. They don't believe in tanking. They believe in winning today and winning tomorrow. Obviously, I'm biased to that. I respect that more. And what has it produced? It's produced a lot of championships, right? And even in their down years, right? Even though their fans may show up 6 minutes into the second quarter, they know what they're going to get when they do show up, right? Yeah. They're going to see guys out there competing, trying to get better. There's a reason why we're here. If they weren't keeping score, yeah, we wouldn't care. But guess what, guys? They do. There's two sides. There's a guest and a home, and they keep score. So we're going to try to win this game no matter what.
And as you should be biased to that, and being in that culture and seeing the winning that's happened. And I'll admit it. I look at what Tom Thibodeau has done in New York, and it's maybe different style, his way, but what he's created in New York is truly remarkable. Going from a team that's being laughed at to now a team that can contend for a title. It's not the Heat way per se, but he's doing it how he wants to, and he's clearly created a team that's in the mix for a title.
Yeah, there's no question. So Thibs was an assistant when I was in Philly, and we were bad. And every night, like especially when it was his scout, the board was full. Like he was going to grind it out, right, and do everything he could to prepare the team as an assistant coach, right? Now he's taking it to a whole nother level now as a head coach. He's a guy that you pull for automatically, and you want to see the Knicks have health at the end of the season. That's going to be the biggest test for them because we know Coach Thibs, he's going to play his guys. He's going to play his guys a lot, right? And are his guys, quite honestly, it's not like, is he going to drive into the guy? No. Are his guys tough enough? Are they going to do what they have to do to stay healthy and give themselves every chance to stay healthy, right, over the course of the season? That's different now too, right? That's different now too for a guy from the 90s, right, where very rarely do we sit our guys. I remember we sat, there was a last game against Nick. I think I played 48 minutes, right, because we knew we were playing the Knicks, and so I got to start, and I played every single minute. I was exhausted playing against Rick Brunson, Jalen's father. But very rarely did you ever see, and we wanted to win the game. Like we wanted to, even though we weren't playing our guys. So, with Coach Thibs, can these guys stay healthy? Because he had great teams in Chicago, and guys broke down, right? Derrick Rose, of course, we know that. In New York against the Pacers, guys broke down, right? Are they going to do everything they can do to get themselves in the best shape possible, right? To have health over the course of not just the regular season, but most importantly at playoff time. And how are they going to manage that? Because we know Thibs wants to win every game. How is he going to manage that to give themselves the best chance of doing that?
Yeah, and one guy who was a big Thibs guy that never sits is Josh Hart, who played 48 minutes a night pretty much in the playoffs. And you actually had the pleasure of coaching him in with the Pelicans in 2020, 2021. He was a young Josh Hart at the time. Was he always like a pain in the ass, fun, loving kind of a guy, or did he just kind of blossom into that with the Knicks?
No, he pain in the ass, fun loving guy for sure. Like, I worked for Stan Van Gundy. Our walkthroughs were not intense, but detailed. And Josh always had a question, or hey Josh, let's lock in right here. And Stan's it's the magic of Stan Van Gundy is he would hold guys accountable, but he never held a grudge. And Josh was gonna play, and Josh was gonna be our four when Zion was out, right? And when Zion was in, he was gonna be our backup four. And if he got it off the glass, go Josh, let's go coast to coast. Like, he loved Josh Hart, and Josh at times I like Josh a lot. He could be a pain in the ass, and he could be a smart ass, and he could ask a stupid question or ask, why are we doing this right now, right? And we would keep doing it. We would be professional as coaches and would deal with it. And guess what? When it was time to play, you knew what Josh Hart was going to bring. He was going to bring unbelievable competitiveness. He was going to defend multiple positions. He was going to fight. And that's why he's been so good with the Knicks and so good throughout his career, quite honestly.
Yeah, and you referenced Rex about Zion and getting to see him firsthand when healthy. What is that experience like, and just the talent level and the athletic ability and all the things he can do on the basketball court, when he is out there?
Yeah, it's funny. I remember getting there and Stan asking the question, like, how are we going to use Zion? And he already knew the answer. He likes to ask questions to see what else everyone else is going to say. And his whole thing was, I want to see what this guy can do. And I'm going to put the ball in his hands. And, Lonzo was great about it because Lonzo was a point guard. We were playing point. If Zion gets it off the glass, go Zion. At times, Zion's bringing the ball up the court. We're going to play through him as a point guard, right? And if he gets anywhere within 5 feet, it's over, right? There's very few guys that can stop him at the rim. I thought that we had really good and really smart pick and roll combinations for Zion, because all he needs is the slightest advantage. All he needs is the smallest amount of space that he can crack, and not just crack, bust through. And then it was like a pogo stick going to the rim. He was just a kid. I remember when he first, got there, he thought Coach Van Gundy's name was Coach Gundy. Like, he's a young country guy. Like, yeah, Coach Gundy, he's really cool to work with. I really like him. But I was like, it's Van Gundy, just so you know. No, he was a lot of fun. And here's the thing too, like, Stan got an awful lot out of him. And that dude was playing with broken fingers at the end of the season and wanted to play. He's a competitor. There's some things that obviously all players can do better. And, there's a diet thing. I think he's really motivated for this year. So I'm excited to see what he brings, because he's a guy that if he gets any kind of crack, any kind of seam, he's going to bust it. And he's either going to get fouled or he's going to get a bucket and get fouled. And he's a pretty good passer as well. So it was a lot of fun. Someone 6'5", I mean, he was think about this, a more athletic, a more skilled Charles Barkley, right? When he's healthy, that's what he is. He doesn't shoot it as well as Charles does from three, but all the other stuff, like, oof, it's scary.
Yeah, just praying for health for him, and I hope he puts it all together. He's just an incredible talent. And last couple of years, you've been an assistant with the Hornets, and one of the players that was with you was an ex-Knicks draft pick that didn't work out, and Frank Ntilikina. He's a big fan favorite, hot button topic with Knicks fans. What are your thoughts on Frank Ntilikina, and do you think like one day he can turn out to be a solid NBA pro? I thought he was a really good defender. It just didn't work out. So what are your thoughts on Frank Ntilikina?
I love Frank and I worked together. He got hurt again. I love Frank. He's smart. He was the one guy in practice that could guard Melo. He could give Melo problems defensively with what he was. He was not always a confident shooter. I think the expectations going, like, you couldn't ask for a worse place to go coming from France, right? A young kid that really, he wasn't like a lot of these guys overseas that they were, like Luka. Everyone was talking about Luka. When you talk about Wembanyama, everyone was talking about. Nobody, like Frank told me, like when I was a young kid, I told he was 18, 19, whatever. and he told all his teammates, like, yeah, I want to play in the NBA one day. They laughed at him. Like no one expected him, right? And he just works and works and works. And I hope he has health. I was a big fan of his. Cliff liked him as well. He could never get healthy for us. And if he can somehow get some offensive confidence, right? Run a team, shoot open shots aggressively, right? He can help a team because he can defend. Like the same way we had Dennis Smith. Dennis could guard 1, 2, and 3, right? Wasn't a great shooter, but could organize us. Frank had more size, could actually guard more positions, but he could never get healthy for us. And the one thing is I would always tease him about, hey, we want delusional confidence. Because I thought if I can get him if I could talk about delusional confidence and just get him halfway confident, he could be a pretty good player for us. So I'm rooting for him. He's a great guy. I want to see guys like that have success, but he could really guard. Like if you asked Melo, like I would think even Melo, if he remembers, and I love Melo, like he's a silly dude, right? He'll say like, yeah, no, Frank can guard. He can really guard, and gave Melo some problems. And I've seen Melo dominate like great defenders. This guy could really guard him.
No, it's
Yeah.
cool. Go ahead, Alex.
No, go ahead. I was just saying, great. That's a great story, and I'm rooting for him too. I hope he gets it all together. He's a good kid. Yeah.
No, we appreciate all your time here, Rex. I want to as we wrap up in a bit, but look, I want to know from your perspective, Derek Coleman in today's NBA with everything asked for, what would that experience be like? And how different do you think DC's career would have gone in the sense of if he was in the modern NBA and he was like, all right, 12 threes a game, and everything that was asked for was somebody that could shoot from the outside, athletic, and do everything at 6'10"?
He would have been a nightmare for the Force in this time and age, because he could do all of it. He could post up, he could bring the ball to the floor, he could really pass the basketball. He had unbelievable hands. The demands, and Chuck wasn't a big practice guy, but we still practiced, right? Back then we had 2 a days. Like, Derek wasn't always all for all that stuff. He wanted to play on game nights, and that's what the NBA is now. It's about getting to the game. And he would have been a nightmare. Like, there's guys that would not be able to guard him. There were guys that couldn't guard him back then. His skill level and his physicality, his toughness, and now players have so much more power that some of the stuff you might have tried would have worked. Some of the things he would have said, people would have said, "Oh, he's funny. He's a funny guy. He's not, disgruntled or mad." He was actually a great teammate. He's a great dude. His heart's all in the right place. He says exactly what he thinks. Sometimes it's right. Just like everyone. Sometimes it's right. Sometimes it's wrong. But no, he would have been a nightmare. 6'9", great hands, great skill, could shoot the basketball. He would have shot it more. At this time and age, he could be a point forward, which they weren't doing back then. He could bring the ball up the court and run offense, right? He could back a guy down. Like, he was really, really good, and he would have been even better in today's game.
And one more just to close it out. There's another famous Rex in the NBA circles now, social media superstar. Do you ever get confused for Rex Chapman when there's like bookings or anything going on? Does that ever get annoying because it's either the big time Rexes in the NBA?
If I had $1 for every time I say, I introduce myself, well, oh yeah, Kentucky, and I'm like, no, wrong Rex.
Wrong.
Okay, you get your facts straight. So no, it happens all the time. I have a little more hair than the other Rex. I'm still keeping that together. No, Rex was someone that I looked up to. I mean, Chapman was someone that I looked up to growing up. He was a better player. I like to say, I think I had a better college career. He had a much better pro career than I did. But it happens all the time. It's really annoying. So thanks for ending my night that way, Alex.
I was always curious about that. Thanks.
Well, I'll get one more for you, Rex, because I know you've been the Heat organization with some incredible coaches, with Pat Riley, Eric Spoelstra, I believe, was on the '99 team, and then Stan Van Gundy. If you had to pick the three here and assign something for everybody, give me your best answer, and maybe put you on the spot here. Okay. Somebody to babysit your kids, somebody that you would go on a road trip cross country from New York to California, and then somebody that you would want to go for dinner with. Or let me put it this way, somebody that would cook dinner for you. Cook dinner for you is the third. Riley,
All right. So
Spoelstra, and Van
no,
Gundy.
so I am biased. I am biased to Stan. So Stan came out and when I was coaching in San Francisco, Stan came out and visited us, right? And the next thing I know, he's teaching my son how to ride a bike, right? Right? He's canoeing with my kids. I wasn't even there. Like Deanna's like, this dude, like he just totally took care of our kids. Like he was unbelievable. And his wife, God rest her soul, was the same way. Like they made you feel important. Now, Stan would never talk to me like when I worked for him, but when he came to visit us that one time, like my kids were like, he is the greatest guy in the world. Like, so babysit would be him. All right. So no question. And I think he's an unbelievable coach. What was the second? What was my other two?
Road trip and cookie dinner.
So I like quiet, like when I'm driving. So Pat would have been perfect because Pat wouldn't have said a word to me. Coach Riley wouldn't say a word to me the whole way. We would just drive and get it done. He would be excited about getting to California. I'm sure he still has his place in Malibu, and we would get there in a timely manner because I know there wouldn't be a whole lot of conversation. Number one, I was a pain in the ass when I played there, right? For him, because I always wanted to play. And so he wouldn't have a whole heck of a lot to say to me. Spoelstra would probably be a really good cook, and you'd probably get some international flavor, maybe get some Filipino food out of it. I'm not a big connoisseur of Filipino food, but I love lumpia. So Spo could probably hook up the lumpia with that stuff. So if I have to pick one for each, I'll say Spo with the cook. Like if I had to have someone cook me a meal. So yeah, that's what I would go with for sure.
Coach, we appreciate your time, being so generous, joining Bad Weather Fans, sharing some amazing stories and insight across the NBA. We truly appreciate it. Thank you for coming on the podcast.
Thank you.
Go Nets, Alex, go Nets.
We got our promo.
No.
Thank you, Coach. Thank you, Rex, for coming on Bad Weather Fans. Really enjoyed some of those old school stories and modern takes on the NBA right now. Great stuff all around. We're going to get to our NFL picks in just a matter of moments. But first, Alex has the word for you from DraftKings.
Yeah, TD Tutty, taking it to the house. Whatever you call a touchdown, they matter more at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Ready to place your first NFL bet? Try betting on someone simple like a player to score a touchdown. You know, for me this week, Jets -6.5. I'm going Jets. They're gonna win. Mike said a blowout earlier. I think it might be 10 points, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's a blowout. I think the Patriots are playing way above their head, and they did lose week 2, but they were in that game, and the Jets should have played a preseason, and they might walk out of the first 3 games in 11 days 2-1, and got their preseason over with and ready to rock. So, are you ready to do a touchdown dance of your own? Score big with DraftKings Sportsbook, the #1 place to bet touchdowns. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code BWF for Bad Weather Fans. That's BWF for new customers to get $250 in bonus bets when you bet just $5 and get 1 month of NFL Plus Premium. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly on behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort, Kansas. 21 plus, age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/ftball. NFL Plus Premium offer available only to new and former NFL Plus subscribers. Additional NFL Plus Premium terms at nfl.com/terms. So, Mike, NFL picks. You went 1-3 last week, right?
1-3.
I went 3-1 again.
Mm-hmm.
So by math, I am 6-1, and you are what?
You are not 6-1 by math.
I'm 6-2. See, my math is wrong. But I'm still 6 wins.
I love how you said I'm 6-1 by math.
By math,
Right.
by the math that I was wrong in doing. I'm 6-2 on my picks.
I'm 3-5.
You're 3-5.
I didn't want to interrupt you during the read, but I thought the rule was I gave the Jets and you gave the Giants during our reads. But
See,
maybe
I thought you messed up, and I was supposed to do
maybe.
so I don't. Yeah,
I
I don't
could
know.
have.
Whatever.
Whatever. By the
So
way,
now we both do the Giants in our picks.
crazy. During your read, the
Yeah.
line changed on that game. I saw it move. It was incredible. It went to
Oh,
6. Literally saw
the
half
Jets?
a point come off. It's now Jets -6.
People must be hammering the Patriots then,
But it was just weird to see it. I felt like it was in
in that live moment. Yeah.
Yeah, it was weird. Anyway, DraftKings live. Good stuff.
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
you want to go?
for it.
You want to go first? You want me to go first?
You go first. You go Giants. I'll go Giants. Then we'll do our two.
All right. I've been burned on the Giants the first 2 weeks. Not going to be burned again. They look incompetent in all levels of football. They're going into Cleveland. It's hard to imagine the Giants keeping this close on the road unless by somehow of a miracle they change everything about themselves. And the Giants have started 0-2 so many years in a row, or 6 out of the last 8, or whatever it's been, that I never want to hear again, well, the 06 Giants started 0-2. It's like I literally hear that at week 3 of the NFL season every time now, and I'm sick of it. Give me the Browns.
Browns -6, huh?
Yeah, the Browns be -100. Give me the Browns. For the love of.
Yeah, and props to the Giants. They made history last week. They were the first team ever, or the second team ever, to score 3 touchdowns and not give up a touchdown and lose the game. That shout out to Evan Roberts and Tiki Barber for bringing that one up.
Stat.
Yeah, it's the second time ever in 100 years of the Giants being in existence.
Think about it. It just doesn't.
It's just impossible. You got to miss a bunch of extra points and 2-point conversions and give up all field goals and lose the game. That's what happened.
It's crazy.
Yeah, so I'm actually going to take the Giants +6 because I don't know if the Giants will win, but I think they'll keep it close because the Browns stink. And with Deshaun Watson, I know he showed some flashes, but like I just don't buy the Browns. And they got lucky to beat the Jags last week, and the Giants would do some luck, So I really feel like I don't know if they'll win, like I said, but I think they'll cover the 6 points. So there we go. So what's your next pick?
I'm going next. Where was it? I just had it. I'm going to take the Steelers at home, 1.5 favorites versus the Chargers. I've hit on Pittsburgh the first 2 weeks as that defense continues to thrive, and I like them to do it again as they go in Pittsburgh at home. Give me the Steelers -1.5.
All right. I'm going next game. Panthers at Raiders. The Panthers are getting 5.5. I'm picking the Panthers. They have benched Bryce Young. I think they'll get a jolt from Andy Dalton, the veteran starter. He's not as good as he used to be with the Bengals, but I think that the Bryce Young has been so bad. It's been so frustrating. It's been so negative to have an adult in the room to just run the offense. I think will give the Panthers a boost to at least cover the 5.5. So I'm going Panthers +5.5 in Vegas.
Just Googled Andy Dalton rookie year. It's 2011, but I feel like it would have been way before that in my head.
Yeah,
but
he's had like 3 careers. He was a starter for so
Crazy.
long with the Bengals, and then he's bounced around now, and it's. I'm surprised. I didn't even know he was in Carolina. They're benching Bryce Young and Andy Dalton. I'm like, Andy Dalton. Like,
yeah, I know.
Jesus. So anyway.
A lot of good games this week. Interesting games too. I'll go with the Bengals 7.5 point favorites at home versus the Commanders. I think Washington is horrible. I think they beat a horrible team in the Giants, and the Bengals, right now a team that seems to always start slow, but at 0-2, desperate. I can't imagine them at home not giving an A+ effort, and I like them to beat the crap out of the Commanders. So give me the Bengals 7.5 in Cincy.
All right. So my last pick will be it's Chiefs are playing the Falcons in Atlanta -3.5. I'm taking the Chiefs -3.5. No Pacheco, he's done, but no problem. Chiefs always figure it out. I mean, they got this other running back. I forgot his name. White guy with the long hair. He fumbled last week, but whatever. The Chiefs always figure it out. Figure it out. And the Falcons, were lucky to beat the Eagles with the Saquon drop. And I just don't feel like they're that good. And I think that the Chiefs are going to come in and overwhelm the cocky Falcons. Mike's laughing still from the finger.
Well, your finger cocky. You got. I mean, you've said it all here. Promo code BWF. All right, cool. Those are picks. I'm 3-5. You're 6-1 because you can do math.
6-2. Yes.
But thank you to Rex Walters for coming on the podcast. I'm sure everybody really will love those stories. Don't forget, if you're watching this on YouTube, go ahead and subscribe. Hit the like feature on YouTube. All of that is greatly appreciated here on this podcast. It means a lot. It goes a long way as we inch closer to the start of the NBA season. Believe it or not, we're approaching October and training camps, and the NBA year will be here and we'll be in full swing. So good stuff. But Alex, good luck to you on your picks. Good luck to you on your Jets. Good stuff from Rex, and enjoy the rest of your Tuesday evening. And if I don't see you, if I don't talk to you, have a great weekend.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Me too. You too. Me too. Yes, me too. I don't know. I'm a mess. I'm tired. Let's go.